Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my Wind and Truth spoiler discussion. Yes, I'm going to go into some spoilers for Wind and Truth. Not all of them, because that would be huge and comprehensive and take way too much time. But I'm going to talk about some of them, some of the ones that stood out to me that I wanted to talk about. And so if you are still reading Wind and Truth or have not yet read Wind and Truth, this is your warning. Do not complain in the comments section that I didn't warn you. There's going to be spoilers in this video. So look away, click away. I'm giving you plenty of time for that. But I have a few topics I want to talk about, some notes to look at, just some things that stood out to me. Now, before I get into this, I'll say first you can watch my full review of the book in a non-spoiler way. But basically, I really enjoyed the book, but I still think it's it was more entertaining to me than Oathbringer or Rhythm of War. Not quite as entertaining as Words of Radiance or Way of Kings. But what I can say about this book is that there are certain things that Sanderson is starting to do now that I don't particularly love. Some of them he started to fix, and some of them he kept doing in this book. One of the things is a lot of his characters change names. They have one name in one series and one name in another, and it's really annoying. For instance, Vasher goes by Zahal in the Stormlight Archive, and at least it's mentioned, it's referenced here, at least like the two names are discussed at one point, but it's really, if you want to have a general audience to catch the references, we do not need to have so many names for different characters. In the same vein, Hoyd goes by Wit. He's like the one character who I feel like should get away with it because that's his job, is moving around and spying and being in all these stories. So you can have multiple names for him. But for instance, if you've read The Sunlit Man, he goes by Nomad the whole time. But it turns out that's Sigzil. And so I was really confused reading that book. And once I read this book, I was like, oh, that makes sense. And so I'm just frustrated by this concept. Sanderson should just pick a character name and stick with it. Speaking of which, the gods have multiple names. Odium's name is not specifically Odium. He also goes by another name in this book. And Honor doesn't just go by Honor. He goes by a couple of names in this book. And Cultivation goes by a couple of names. And it's just, I understand why, when I was reading it, I understand why Sanderson did it, because he's trying to show how they kind of change, how they were humans who became God type things. It's too confusing. It's too much. Anyway, that's my first little rant. Talking about some things I loved, Kaladin and Szeth going to Shinovar. So I think most people probably knew this going in. I didn't, because I don't read the preview chapters. But the flashbacks in this book are for Szeth, and I actually really like them. I think that his flashback of him murdering the person that was attacking, and so him being sent off to become the assassin, and then his whole family going with him, I thought was really interesting. I thought every decision his dad made was just so sad and tragic, and you really connected with Vasher. And I never cared, not Vasher, Szeth. I never really cared for Szeth in the previous books. He was just kind of there. I actually really empathized with him in this book. The flashbacks helped with that. So did his main story with Kaladin. I think I referenced this in my spoiler-free review, but chapter 66 is the chapter where Kaladin really starts to get in and realize what he needs to do with Szeth, and really starts to understand what his therapy will be. And I thought it was a great chapter. It was so beautifully written. I loved that chapter. But really, I loved all of Szeth's character arc here. Kaladin felt surprisingly out of character. I loved it, but I'm not sure other people will, because Kaladin felt so upbeat. Kaladin felt so positive, so hopeful for the future. Throughout this book, Kaladin is not the one going through a tough time. The entirety of Way of Kings and a lot of Words of Radiance is Kaladin going through a tough time. And Oathbringer, he's starting to get some mojo back, but he is still down in the dumps the whole book. And it felt like Rhythm of War was the first book where he wasn't down in the dumps. He didn't know what to do with his life, but at least he wasn't down in the dumps. And in this book, he's actually quite happy, and he's found purpose. And I really liked him. This is, for Kaladin, my favorite version of Kaladin that we've gotten so far. And then for for Dalinar, I really enjoyed his journey through this book. I really enjoyed him going in, looking through what's supposed to be basically visions, but also kind of not just vision-y, because Odium can apparently mess with the visions, but him trying to find out about the creation of Roshar and the Heralds and the breaking of the Oath Pact and all that stuff, I thought was really great. And, everyone complains that Dalinar is basically, tromping over everyone and he's stampeding his way through and my way or the highway. But I'm be like, yeah, let Dalinar do his thing. He's got a plan. Do you have a plan to stop Odium? Dalinar's got the plan. Let him do it. It's like, I see no problem with this. This is the great man theory of, he sees a problem, he sees a solution, he's going to try. Everybody else is just like, oh no, we see the problem, and nobody else has a solid solution. So I'm just like, yeah, let Dalinar be Dalinar. Let him be the Blackthorn. That's just me. Not that I want him killing everybody, but I want him taking charge and really solving the problem. And so I really just thought his journey was fascinating in this book. And then at the end, when he has to, not in the end, it's more like middle end, but anyway, when we get to the 10th day and he's ready to face down Odium, and who does he have to face down? Is it Elokar? No, that's not Elokar. It's Gavinor. It is his grandson who has somehow aged up. First of all, I was like, man, that was a twist. I did not see that coming, because they kept saying, oh yeah, Gavinor is sleeping. Navani brought him back and he's sleeping. And then when he's like, no, it's real. He was stuck in there for 20 years. They had so many times this saying, hey, be careful. You don't want to be in there for years on end. And so Sanderson had laid the groundwork for this, but I was just so heartbroken. And part of me thought, yeah, he should probably fight Gavinor. He should, it'd be worth it, kill Gavinor and save the rest of Roshar or something. But in the book it ends up being better than that. He finds a way to say the oaths and then break the oaths and then break the cycle with Odium, and he basically dies, but he also kind of banishes Odium and stuff, and it works out well. But I was just like, I wanted to see Dalinar be awesome. Now, something that was really confusing, and Moash shows up and kind of fights with the main, the Bridge 4 characters, and I believe, is it Leighton that he kills? I'm pretty sure it's Leighton that he kills, and then he kind of has some fighting with Sigzil, and if Moash died, I must have missed that, but I don't think Sigzil killed him or Lopin or anything. I thought he was just knocked down or forced to retreat, but thematically, this is something I was talking with my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law was insistent that it had to be Kaladin versus Moash as the two champions, and he was insistent that that's what the story is written to be. That is what the end goal has to be, based off of the foreshadowing and the build-up and the setup from the previous books. And I actually agree with that. I feel like that's what Sanderson should have done. I understand what he's doing with Dalinar, and makes me realize, Dalinar was the main character of the first 5 books. Part of me thought it was Kaladin in the, based on, because he's the main character in the first book. But as I think about the series, yeah, it's Dalinar's series so far. And even Brandon said that, the first character he really had and fleshed out in the series was Dalinar. So anyway, I just felt like it should have been Kaladin versus Moash, and we never got that. Kaladin never interacts with Moash. He doesn't even really interact with much of the Bridge 4 characters. So I don't know. Is Moash going to show up in books 6 through 10? Is Kaladin going to show up in books 6 through 10? And will they finally have the fight, the payoff? Will that be in book 10? Will that be in book 6? It feels like it still has to happen. Otherwise, Sanderson missed a major thematic opportunity. Also, talking about Kaladin, Kaladin is kind of goes with the other heralds to the planet. He's now, I think, one of the heralds or one of the Oath Pact, whatever it's called. He's one of them now, and he goes to the other planet with them, and they realizes that there's other people on the planet. And so I don't know, is Kaladin banished there? Is he required to stay there? Will he be able to come back? I don't. No, I mean, if part of it makes sense for Kaladin, because Kaladin, Dalinar, and Shallan are the 3 main characters. Dalinar's dead, Shallan is banished to Shadesmar, and Kaladin is off to this other planet. And I don't know if Kaladin and Shallan will be brought back into the main series of 6 through 10, or if they're gone, they're going to go on other adventures, and 6 through 10 are going to be the other characters. Because I believe I read one point that Sanderson said 6 through 10 are going to focus on other characters. But since Shallan and Kaladin are both alive, it seems like they should find a way back. I don't know how that's going to work. I'm really curious to see, because this could have been the big finale, and it is for this arc of books, but, you know, Odium's not permanently finished, and there's still going to be a conflict in the future, and it seems like Kaladin should be, I mean, there. Maybe it's just me saying I feel like Kaladin has importance, and he's not even a favorite character of mine. You know, Adolin and Dalinar, those are the two characters I've always connected with, but it seems to me that Kaladin has to be involved in the future books, because he has to face off with Moash, and he has to do some major things. The only thing that really clicked with this book, in terms of finishing his story arc, was him doing the therapy with Seth. That felt like that was the conclusion of his mopiness arc. Now he's no longer mopey. Now he helps other people get out of their mopiness. And I was like, great, that's great. Also, by the way, Shallan finally gets rid of Vale is out, and she finally gets rid of radiant in her head, and so like, you know, occasionally they'll make little comments, but they know they're not taking over. And I was waiting for her to do this. I wanted her to get rid of both of them since they came in the first, you know, what was that, in Words of Radiance, or was it Oathbringer that they show up? Anyway, that was really annoying to me, but I was so happy that he gets rid of them, and at the end of the book, so I'm like, I need to have more Shallan, because I want to see Shallan without the crazy Radiant and Veil bits. I just care about Shallan herself. So I'm really curious, and also I hope she makes it back to Adolin. Also, Adolin was really fun in the book. His story was really great, even though he was kind of a side character. His side story was the action of the book throughout the whole entire book, and his connection with Yagawan, I think is his name, was really sweet. So there's the time dilation at the very end of the book. And in the time dilation portion, they're talking about how, it's going to take about 10 years for Roshar to start moving normally again for everyone else. And so that makes sense, because it's supposed to be a 10-year time jump in the next book. That makes sense with book 6. And we're going to have another 7 years probably before the next Stormlight book. It's looking like it'll be 2031, 2032 that the next Stormlight book comes out. And so, yeah, it's about, 7-8 years from now. So that checks out. You know, it's going to be a time jump. But for everyone else, they're moving so fast. And I wonder if this is because Sanderson set the Mistborn trilogies at different points and so spread out, and he needs to find a way to make it so the first Mistborn trilogy and the middle ones and the late ones all still connect to the Stormlight Archive. And so I'm really curious how he's going to do that. And I was under the assumption, I've not read Secret History, and so I was under the assumption that we are reading Kelsier post-death, Secret History in this book. But when Hoyd jumps over to Scadrial, he is hired to be a carriage driver, which, if my memory serves correctly, I believe he was a carriage driver in Mistborn Era 1. So am I totally off on the time? Am I totally wrong on my time zone? That's something that, I love Sanderson, and I love the fact that he can make connections, but I don't understand them, because it's really hard for me to follow, especially with such massive books like this. And so I'm really curious to see, is he there, or did he jump to Era 3, and are all 3 eras of Mistborn, the first, I think there's going to be 4, but are the first 3 eras or 4 eras of Mistborn going to take place during this time dilation, because it's going really fast everywhere else, and it's going really slow on Roshar? I don't know. And just all that discussion makes me think, is the time dilation different for Kaladin? Is Kaladin going to grow really old on the other planet that he's on, and then when he gets back, it's been, 100 years for him, and for everybody else, it's only been 10 years. I don't know. Those are some fascinating things to me. Those are my general spoiler-related thoughts. There's a lot more I could have talked about. Everybody else hates Lift. That seems like everybody hates Chris. Everybody hates Lift. I actually really enjoy Lift when she's not corrupting Gavinor, when she's not teaching people swear words. I actually find her delightful. Everybody else is like, yeah, she's a cheesy version of a kid. I'm like, I like cheesy versions of kids, because I teach cheesy versions of kids in my class. Anyway, that's just me. But I enjoyed the book. I have my problems with it, but I still think that Sanderson's worst book is still better than some authors' best books. So I had a blast with this. If you've read Wind and Truth, let me know your thoughts. And I hope I didn't spoil you. I warned you all at the beginning of the video that there would be spoilers, but let me know in the comments what you thought of the book and what you think of my ideas and theories down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.